Hi folks, in this video basically we will take a look at how we can view the sun using a Newtonian telescope like this. So we will be using a solar aperture filter, and then we will take a look at how we can point this telescope to the sun when we are using that aperture filter, because obviously we cannot use the star pointer or any finder scope if it had one. I'm using my Astromaster 130 uh, Newtonian telescope on top of my CEM25P mount. So this is the aperture filter that we will use. It is a Baader solar aperture filter. It's a 5-inch aperture filter that will fit this particular optical tube, and we will need to fit it on the open end of the telescope. So it is this side, and we should be very careful when we're doing solar viewing that we should not be using any eyepiece side filters. All the filters should come on the open end of the tube, so that there is maximum protection from the intensity of the solar rays. I mean, if you don't do this, what can happen is it can damage the optics, it can damage our eyes, anything can happen. Also, we need to fasten the aperture filter very nicely onto the telescope. Make sure that it is securely fit, and it's not going to come out while we are moving the scope or while in the middle of an observation session, because that can be catastrophic, right? I mean, we don't want any of the concentrated rays of the sun getting into our eyes and damaging it permanently. Okay, so the telescope is actually roughly pointing north, but it is not polar aligned. So we will actually slew the telescope to point to the sun, but yeah, it's not going to be exactly aligned towards the sun. So we will still need to use the shadow method to align it properly. And obviously, even if it is a manual scope or a manual mount, the principle will be the same. And before we actually slew, we need to make sure that the aperture filter is secure. So we don't want to point the scope and then end up having the sun rays hitting the mirror at the back. Before, so we need to just be careful and make sure that the aperture filter is fitted onto the scope prior to moving it towards the sun, and also cover any other optics like the finder scope and things like that, so that we don't end up getting into some kind of accident with that. So when we try to slew, it will show us a warning that viewing the sun will cause permanent damage. And yeah, so it is roughly moving towards the sun's direction right now. So to exactly point the telescope to the sun, we don't really need any special equipment. Just a cardboard like this would do, so that we can just place it behind the telescope and make sure that we get a very small shadow. So, or if we hold it close to the scope like this, then we should be just getting a slightly circular shadow around that. So I've just attached my camera to the eyepiece so that it becomes easier for us to see the sun when it comes into the eyepiece. And so let's start. So I've attached the cardboard to the back of the telescope like this, so that it's easier for me to film it, and just to show how I actually align the scope using the shadow. Okay, so let me try to get this in focus. So as you can see, the shadow is not exactly aligned properly, and let's try to correct that. Now if you see the shadow of the star pointer over there, so that is off to the side. Ideally it would be on top of the scope once it is aligned. So let's try to do that. And the sun is going behind the clouds on and off, so we will have to wait for it. Okay, it's gone behind the clouds completely. Okay, there we have it back. So let's align it roughly. If you look below the scope, there's a lot of extra shadow there that is not expected. So you would expect to see that shadow a lot smaller. So I'm just going to adjust that further, like that. This might actually be easier with a manual scope. So if we look at the eyepiece, the sun is not yet in it, so we will need to adjust further. So if we look on the other side, yeah, it does look like it needs some adjustment. So let's try to get that corrected. And yep, that should do it. And yes, we do have the sun in the eyepiece now. So from this point, okay, so it is gone again. In Bangalore right now, so even you can't even see the sun, so it's kind of difficult to see the stars and planets. The sun itself is behind the clouds. Okay, so there we have it back. So once we have it in the eyepiece, it's kind of easy to obviously align it, because we have a visual reference, easy visual reference for us to align it, and the fine adjustments can be done by just looking into the eyepiece. And as I said before, be very careful that the filter will not fall off when it is fastened securely. And that is a good projected view of the sun there, with a lot of clouds obviously in front of it. So if you look at the shadow now, you can see that it's a pretty round shape. Yeah, the shadow on to the right over there, that's the shadow of the eyepiece. But otherwise you can see that it's pretty much close to the scope, and this gives you an idea on what to expect. So when you're trying to align the scope toward and point it towards the sun. Let's just take a quick look at the aperture filter that I'm using. This is a Baader off-axis solar filter. So this is basically the film through which the light is cut out. So as you can see here, it says around 99.999% of the sunlight intensity is reduced when the light comes through that. So this is an off-axis design because on the Newtonian telescope, the center part is obstructed, right? So there's no point in having a filter there. So that the light has a clear path to go back to the mirror at the back of the telescope, we have the film towards one side. So this is a 5-inch design, so that's why I was using the old tube, because this does not fit properly on the new one. Okay, so there are this screws are screwed in on the inside when this is stored. So before attaching it to the telescope, we will need to take all of them out and then attach it on the outside, so that it is properly secured on the telescope, right? We need to be very careful with this film to make sure that it does not get damaged in any way. And before any viewing is done, we have to make sure that there is no hole or no damage that has happened to it, because that can be pretty dangerous. These were the sheets that I just got with it, so you can just see it gives some details about the filter itself, and obviously safety instructions. It's very important that when you're looking at the sun, you're really aware of what you're doing. If you're looking through a filter, you need to get the filter from a proper manufacturer like Baader or other well-known manufacturers. Don't try to do any DIY stuff on the film itself. Though I know that people do DIY on securing the film to the telescope. That's fine, but the film itself should be from a proper manufacturer. Don't try anything else. So that's it. So this is the warranty, etc. So it's a pretty neat thing to have if you have a regular telescope with you, Newtonian or refractor also. A proper solar filter will mean that you get to view the sun as well during the daytime, and you're not bored or waiting for the night. So I hope you found this video useful, and thanks for watching. Thank you.